Okay, what's up, y'all? In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make this hyperpop type beat. It is kind of like a Glaive beat, I would say. Maybe a Jedwill type beat with like less glitchiness. But first thing I'm going to do is just play it all the way through. It's like a 2-minute beat, so if you don't want to watch this part, just skip it. I'm actually going to go get a cup of coffee while this plays, so here we go. Okay, and we're back. So to break this beat down, I think I'm gonna kind of do it the way that I made it, and I built this whole beat around this guitar riff right here. And it's basically a little call and respond, you know? Call, you know, call. And then the respond is this part. And on the second respond, it resolves. Right, that little do-do-do, that's the resolution of that 4 beats, 4 bars, I don't know what it is, whatever it is. And then on this second go, it starts on B instead of A sharp, and then it ends on F, kind of leading into the ultimate resolution. So like when I made this, I wasn't like, oh, I want to have a call and a respond and then this and that. No, I'm just like messing around with playing, you know, of not random, but you know, I'm making something that I think sounds cool, and I'm not saying like I'll have it call and then respond and then it'll resolve and then it'll have an ultimate resolution at the end. No, it's just, you know, make a melody that sounds cool, and then if you want to make it a little better, just try and complicate it a little bit, but not too much. You know, you don't want it to be just random unless you're doing like Dariacore or some shit, which is cool, but not for this type of beat. So yeah, I have it call, respond, and resolve. And then in the second half, these two notes both add a lot to it by like progressing the beat forward. I don't know if that helps you or anything, or if that's just overly explained, but you know, it's just a good way to like not have it, you know, sound flat by being this. Right? That's a lot more flat than what we have. Yeah, so then the next part is this same guitar patch, and I'll show the patch in a second. It's almost like the rhythm guitar for it, and both together they just kind of work well. And yeah, from there, I think I'll just go ahead and jump in and show these patches are identical, but they're both in Flex, and Flex is an FL Studio basically an FL Studio version of Contact, and I don't use it that much, but I always use the guitars in it when I do use it. It's really, the guitars are really good, so. Yeah, FL only on this one, so Ableton gang, fuck out of here. You guys, I'm sorry, you don't get to have this one. You guys get other cool shit. Like 80% of all the other cool things are Ableton. We get one thing. So you leave now. And I'm sure you probably know a way to wrap it into Ableton or something like that. So fuck y'all anyways for just having cooler shit. I feel like I live on the poor street where they're like, here, you have this nice ball and cup toy called Flex. And everything else you can just play with when you go to Ableton's house. I'm sorry. I don't know. This has nothing to do with making me music. It's my grudge against the Ableton people. Yeah, so all I did here was turn the release up a little bit. I turned all these, I don't know if I changed these, so just look in your Flex on the Darkstar acoustic patch and see if you change these or not. And then I turned the reverb off and the delay off because I like to have more control on it. And if you don't have Flex, just use like any guitar sampler and make yours with that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I did for that. And then the processing, they basically go into two different EQ buses. So, right. And this one's getting the lows tamed a little bit. And then the accent, the lower guitar, is getting the lows cut. Right. And as you can see, I'm cutting a lot off of there to make space for the bass and stuff later. And then the highs are getting boosted a little bit. And then that's getting sent two places. It's getting sent into the guitar send, which I'll go over in a minute. And then into the guitar processing. And I hope that this doesn't clip out my audio, but we will try it. So this is it with the processing. And I know you can hear those crackles and pops in there. It's coming from Guitar Rig and OBS running in tandem, so I'm sorry about that. So with the Guitar Rig only, I'll show the patch here. And all you really need here is, I just was trying to get it to be a little bit more grungy sounding. So I have a tube compressor, reverb, a studio reverb, and an ensemble. And as you can hear, like, there's not too much space going on with the reverb. It's just a short little room decay type deal. The tube compressor just pumps the gain a little bit and stomps it down a little bit. And then the ensemble, of course, adds the tiniest amount of width. I'll turn the wetness up so you can hear it. Right, again, pretty subtle, even on 100%, and then I toned it way back to like 12% or something. Right, just gives it some space. And then the next thing is a little EQing. And I'll turn all these on just so you can kind of hear it with the whole chain on. And this EQ is really just pulling the highs down, and then on some of the more harsh notes, pulling... you know, I've got the adaptive EQ going on this one, so. So on the really harsh spots up here, it's controlling them. Right, I think you can hear it a little bit there. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but then I have an OTT. Just kind of gluing it together. A ton of gain cut down right here. That's the one note I will say. And then the depth pretty low. And I adjusted the middle band up. And then some compression. And those are the OTT and the compressor are just really to glue it together. And I'll play it with the low guitar too, so you can kind of hear the processing working on it. So this is the low guitar with no processing again. So it just kind of chunks it up a little bit and gives it some space. It takes the dryness out of it. Okay, and then the next thing is both of these guitars get sent into, and I'm going to turn this off because it's just going to be too much CPU getting used up. They get sent into a guitar send, and I will play this one by itself first. Okay, and then this is the processing for that little guitar send that's pitched up. It is a pitch shifter, a little bit of bit crushing. Let me just play that by itself. So with just that, it sounds like this. And then I have a repeater, which is a delay, but all it's doing is just doing the shortest little single feedback note. And then it has a Haas effect right here, this spread knob set to B, which is the furthest, you know, it's the longest Haas setting on here. And a Haas delay is, it's basically this. For anybody that doesn't know, this is basically the Haas effect right here. And it pans, it delays one of the channels left or right. It actually is delaying the right one in this one, I can tell from my ears. I'm proud of myself for that. That's cool that I can do that. Yeah, so it just adds this little tiny bit of width to it. And then the echo mode that I use just kind of cuts it down. As you can see here, it's cutting some of the ringy highs out. And then the EQing also cuts the highs out. And then also it goes through the guitar mix thing, but I can't play it because it literally won't, it just clicks the whole time. So I'm not going to play that, but it also goes through the same effects as the guitar, and it gets sent to that as like a mix bus. And then finally, once I rendered it out, I put it through more processing using a send. So the send, again, just cuts the crap out of the lows and makes space for the mids on the regular guitar, right? The non-send. And then added another bit crusher. Almost to saturate it, pretty much just to saturate it. Yeah, so it's just adding some beefiness there. And the way that the arrangement for this track started was like, I made the swing guitar and I had it playing through the whole track. And then I was like, oh, I'll do a low guitar. And then I added that, and always one of them is playing and never are they both playing at the same time. So it's kind of its own little bit of call and respond. And then one of the sends is also always playing. So here you have a mix right in the intro. So it's this pitched up 2 octaves. And then once it goes into this part of the beat, it just shadows the main swing guitar. And then once you get to this part, you have the low guitar playing with, oh, I don't know why these are linking together. There we go. With an octave up of it. So the beginning is 2 octaves up, this part. And that's probably why I had that automation in there. So there's always one guitar playing and always one send playing with it. It's never like 4 guitars. You know, it's never all 4 of the different things together. So, okay, so the next part I'm going to show you is this stab. And the stab replaces the call in the guitar mix part. Right, so it's like call and then a guitar respond, and then it's the second call happens in the guitar, so it just kind of adds some depth there. And the patch looks like this, and it's just basically a saw that's kind of getting plucked by envelope 2 here. Without the envelope, it sounds like this, right? And then you add the envelope in, and it's not really going that high up, but the through here is what opens it up, right? And then I have a bit of dimension expander on there with a pretty low wetness. The reverb I'll get to later, but that's the wash that happens at the end, and I'll explain that later. And then an OTT just slamming it down, and then the gain's up. Also, the release is really long on the OTT, which like lets it kind of kills the tails, is the best way to explain it. Right, with it shorter, you can't hear the difference too much, but it kills the tails. Just take my word on that. If you ever go experiment with it, long releases kill tails on stuff. So then I have it going through an EQ just to darken it up a little bit. So we have some OTT, again bringing it up, and then I kill the low mids on it and the highs quite a bit more. So it's pretty bright and punchy like that. And then the delay I did with a delay set to six note, whatever the 6 is here. I think it's like 6 beats or something. And then I put a flanger on it just to kind of like let it move and not be so give some stereo to it and let it just kind of ride. And then I have an EQ on the delay, which really cuts it down. Oh, that's the other thing with the delay. It's set to low pass, so as the delays ring out, a low pass filter prevents the highs from delaying so much. And as you can see, there's not so much highs compared to the actual pluck. And then there's another EQ killing the lows of it, right? So the low pass kills the highs. Then there's an EQ killing the lows because I really wanted to shrink this down. And then the last thing that I have here and you can hear the flanger really doing work there, right? It just helps the notes to have a little bit of resonance. And this compressor here is sidechained to the actual stab, which makes the delay not start as soon as the stabs hit. Right, it pushes that first note back. Actually, one more thing with the delays. I used in the intro this little reverse, which I just basically let this first stab run go, and then turn the delay on. Only recorded the delay and then reversed it here to where you have this, you know, thing that's quite big and long, but I cut it down to be short. Right, and it works well with the intro part here and this. Right, and then the last thing that I'll go over with the stab is this stab wash. And then structurally, I think what makes this beat really work is the stab doesn't happen. It only happens during the chorus here and the chorus here, or the verse here and the verse here. And then during the final chorus, you know, this part right here, right, I would call that the chorus. In the final chorus, I have the stab come back in and play during that chorus, and it also has this big tail on it, right? And it's nice and it's lush and it's pretty, and I think it really adds a tone to this beat that's good. And to just show how I did that, it's super simple, and it's a trick that I think everybody could benefit from and everybody should know. So all it is here is I have this washover knob that controls this reverb. So when the stab hits, this stab wash automation turns the reverb up before the OTTs that are on it, and putting a reverb before an OTT will make this really big patty like sound like that. So that's all that's there to make that happen. And then the last thing is, I would normally, I think in the ideal situation, I don't ever want to have reverbs going into delays. It just gets so muddled and washed out. But in this case, I thought that it worked by having the flanger to change the tone of it, if that makes sense. So like if I would have just had, you know, big reverb part and then it goes through the delay and it's just the identical reverb just delayed, I think it sounds it's too much going on. There's too much spaciousness going on. But with the flanger that I have on the delay here, it's kind of got that like Deep Space Nine type vibe where it's, you know, flanging the spatial element, and you know, it's kind of a feeling thing. You don't have to do that, but I would say if you're gonna do a delay and a reverb, use sends for both of them, right? Like have your delay send and then a reverb send, so you can have this nice crisp delay that bounces back and forth, and it's just pure notes and it stands out from your reverb. But in this case, it felt like I didn't want to go back and redesign it. It sounded good as it was. And a good tip is, like, for me, it would have taken 2 hours more on this beat to separate them out, and that is not worth it for the result that I already had, in my opinion. So yeah, I can say 1,000 words about that, but it really just comes down to, like, we're good here. We're good. We don't have to do all that. yeah, moving on to the next part. I think when you're making music, like 80% is perfect. You know, if you're striving for perfect, you're never gonna get it. And I heard this from some video, so I didn't make this up. But if you get to an 80% where it's like 80% of what I want is in this beat, that's your 100% mark. You don't want to go for perfection because you're never gonna hit that. No beat is ever perfect. Even the best song you've ever heard is not perfect. To the creator, I'm sure it's not. They could find issues with it. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to go over here is the Reese, the little Reese bass that goes on, which sounds like this. And this one is so nice and simple. Basically, I like making Reese basses, so I'll make a couple of these ahead of time, and then I have them that I can use, and it's just a sample. The only thing I did to it was turn on monophonic mode so that it can bend from note to note. As you can see here, when it goes up, there's a little overlap here, so it bends into it. And then I think I changed the slide. Yeah, it's a real short slide, whereas like a longer slide would sound like this. Right, you can hear it bending up. And I was good with the really short on this one. I don't know what it was that made me decide that, but it's probably arbitrary. It could go either way, I bet. And I just used the low pass in this case to fit with the mix, just to give space for this guitar. If you look, this is cut down at 243. And this one, 224, is where it's, being cut at. So the guitar fits because my sub bass, my Reese, is in here, and the lead guitar that goes over it is playing here and cut down here. So just a little mixing tip for you. And that's all for that one. Now I don't have to show too much there. Then the lead in, this is also going to be a short one. It just sounds like this. In context, I'll play it. Right? And it just adds a ton to kind of finish this, to let it lead into the next part. And all it is another flex with the staccato strings. As you can see, no delay, no reverb, nothing else changed. I don't think in there, but you can really go granular and see if it is. And then it's flex, since it's FL native, the velocity controls work with it. So basically the volume is going up, the intensity is going up, and then I also have a low pass on it. Oh, and a stereo enhancer. And the stereo enhancer does what? Just a Haas delay, just to give it some width. And I'm sure that was just because in the mix there's a lot of center elements. Let me see without this. Right, hear how hidden that is compared to this? It's subtle. If you don't hear it, I don't blame you, because I barely hear it. But I think in context it works. Maybe not that necessary, but just trying to show you what I got here. I think all those little things add up to a lot in the end. Then we have our bass, and this one might take a second, but we will show it. And this, I will go ahead and show, follows our guitar riff, the low guitar. So, and as you can see, our notes here, our 808 notes, are the same as our low guitar root notes here. So that's just kind of gives you the idea of where I got the pattern from, and the little changes. It does change to this note here at the end of it. So just, kind of trying to fit with the guitar with it. I want to fit my bass with the elements that I have, but not have it be too similar, because it can get kind of static then. So, and this, I am not going to go over this whole preset, because I'm definitely going to do a tutorial on this one later. It's like a Hyperpop sound that I use, and I just made recently. I'm really proud of it. And it sounds like this, and this is going to sound rough, so just prepare your ears. Hey, what do you know? It's me in the edit. I just wanted to make this real quick to say I already made that tutorial. It's in the description below, and I'm just going to move on to the drums. If you want to see, it's the exact same as it is in this song in that tutorial, and you'll have the preset and the processing that I used. So yeah, let's just keep it rolling. Okay, then moving on to the drums, this is what they sound like soloed out. And as you can see, when the call happens with the stab, they cut out, so there's no kick on the one, which I think is a good way to like lead into your next portion of the beat. And then the kicks here kind of follow the Reese in a way, so boom, boom, boom. As you can see, when the note changes up here and goes back down here and goes back up here, there's a kick on each of those, but there's also some other kicks, and like these here don't line up with the note changes, but it's just a way to kind of, you want your bass and your kick and your drums to all work together. But you don't want them to be too much similar, right? Like you don't want to put a kick every time the note changes, because then it just kind of sounds mechanical and like formulaic, in my opinion. You want to build a vibe, is what it was, I think, the best way to put it. So yeah, the kicks and the claps work with the beat, and then the hats just kind of add a rhythm that's not there without them, you know? They almost kind of follow, I guess, the guitar. Right? They almost follow. Let me see. Let me pull them up and see how closely they follow it. And like when I was making this beat, like I didn't consciously do this, but yeah, as you can see, it kind of does follow. You have hats hitting where notes happen a lot of the times. Yeah. So, well, I don't want to go in and get too granular and descriptive there, but you're just basically trying to, with the hats, I was trying to add a rhythm to it. And then the other thing I will say is I always skip the kick on the downbeat on the one here, on this first beat where the stab happens. I skip the kick, go right into the hat, go right into the clap, but then also this little skittery hat. We have like the ringy hat here, this one. And then we also have this little skittery hat. It just adds a nice shuffle and leads into the clap every time. And then if we fast forward here to the next part, it double skitters, which I really think just bringing in a new element like after 8 bars is a good way. Your vocalist, when a vocalist is put on this track, or if a vocalist was on this track, they're going to carry the majority of like progressing the song, right? Like people are going to be listening to their hook or their verse or whatever it is. But you also want to like give them something to work with as far as like if they have a kind of, you know, samey type melody that goes through here, the hats will just kind of, it'll bring you back in like to let you know that the beat, it's not to let you know that the beat's still changing, but it's just a good way, a good tip to like keep your beat flowing forward is to change stuff up, even if it's just adding that second little hat in there. And it just makes it nice and swingy, even though there's no swing on these drums, right? It sounds swingy, but there's no swing. They're right on the, you know, they're quantized. So yeah, and I almost forgot the sidechain here. If you're new to producing, sidechaining is super important. And what this does is every time we turn everything on and then the claps off, every time that the clap hits or this kick hits, I have 2 separate side chains here, one for the kick and one for the snare. The white ones are for the claps, or the snare / clap or whatever. And the black one is for the kicks here. And those basically just duck the beat every time. And if you ever are trying to figure out like, hey, how should my side chain go? If you want to solo route something, you just hold control, right? Like to where I don't have to go this and then this. You just hold control and do this and it'll solo route it. So if I just play my kicks here, oops, I gotta solo them out again. I can look and like visually cut my kick out, right? And then I would also recommend too, like when you are designing your sidechain, you don't want to just do it visually. And my sidechains here are slightly different from my kick and my snare because the clap. I'm sorry, I keep calling it a snare because the clap is shorter. Yeah, and then before we move on, I just want to go in and say that these drums, there's no processing on the clap. No, I called it a snare, but it's the clap. And then the hats, no processing. And the reason, oh, actually there is a compressor on the hats. And what does this do? Let's turn it off. Okay, it's just killing the tails a little bit. As you can see, the attack is pretty long. And then, oops, sorry for that little pop in the mic. The attack's pretty long and the release is pretty short. And I can actually solo out just what's being compressed. It's just removing the end and adding a little bit more of a transient onto it. That is so subtle, but like it makes a difference in the grand scheme of things. So, and the reason that I didn't do any processing on these drums is because I probably did and then just rendered them. But yeah, these are drums that I made. So like when I make a drum, I want it to be good to go. I don't want to put a drum in and then have to do a bunch of stuff to it. And you don't typically need to do all that if you're making a beat. All right, and then I'm going to run through the arrangement just to give you an idea of how I structured this track out. So we started off. Right, we have our guitar that comes in, and it's kind of a reduxed version of it. As you can see, I chopped out all of the calls and just have the responses. And then I have this send guitar, which is it's a pitched up version of the low guitar here, pitched up 2 octaves. And I also have the clap going. And then this other thing here, which is way down here, this EQ minimizer, is an EQ that's on the guitar that just cuts a ton of frequencies out. And it's only on this guitar right here. It's not on the send. It's just the guitar trying to cut a bunch of frequencies out of it to when it comes in here, it makes it more impactful because it's really small and then it gets big and it just kind of helps the beat drop in and be more exciting, really. Sometimes instead of making things bigger as you go, like there's a ceiling of how large your beat can be because you only have so much spectrum that you can fill up with audio. You kind of, at certain points, it's better to, instead of adding more, you just take some away. And so when it comes back, it is real big and loud and full, right? It's by subtracting from it, you make it bigger in the normal parts. So then the same thing there, that EQ minimizer that I showed that's on the guitar, there's another one on the drum bus that cuts the clap way down. So like if I play this again. Whoops, I gotta have the clap going. Right? That's without. That's with. So you can see there that it's really cutting a lot of elements down. And then once we get up close here to the switch, I have a little short riser, which I try and avoid using those in songs that I do that aren't EDM, just because like I think it's cheesy when you just have like a noise sweep on every transition, but it works here, I think. And then you have that little reverse that I showed earlier. So continuing on. And as you can see there, the EQ minimizer drops out, everything opens up, and the beat starts playing. Right, so just pausing it real quick. We still have our guitar going. It's at full strength. Our guitar send has changed over into mirroring. It's just mirroring our mix thing there. The stabs are in. Delays are in the background, kind of adding that pad. The Reese is in. And then the drums are full force here. And then you hear our lead in happens there, that little dun 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 dun. Yeah, and that kind of leads us into the next part. And then the one thing I will show is the delay right here rings out for a significant portion of this. So, you know. right? And I think that that is a good way to like not use noise sweeps and impacts and all that, is just to let your, you know, your delays and your reverbs ring out, and you can even boost them in a lot of cases. And I would probably, if I was going to like release this or try and get somebody to sing on this, I might even do that. But it's good here. We're at 80% of what I want, so that's perfect. So then we have our guitar changes to the low guitar, the send changes to mirror it. And then our bass comes in. Lead in comes back, and we're actually leading into a lower energy part, which, you know, I'm assuming if there was going to be a vocalist, they would come in and they're going to be doing the heavy lifting in this section because it's very samey, but that gives your vocalist space to do stuff. And as you can see, my minimizer is back on from the intro, and this is identical to our intro here. So we just have it goes back to the intro basically. Okay, and I'm going to skip through this because what we have here is identical to what we have here. You know, we got our verse, chorus, coda, verse, chorus. So we'll go to the last chorus here. And as you can see, our stab replaces that first 808 hit. So here, boom, you know, that 808 comes in, but in this second half, the stab replaces it. So we have a lot, you know, basically everything comes together here. It's kind of the crescendo of the track, and you know, it's all the elements together. So we've got our guitar, got our send, low guitar with the send, stabs going. Stab wash is actually brought in at this point. So we have, you know, this stab with the wash automation turned on. And I explained that earlier in the video if you skip to this point. And then the bass and the delay and all the elements are working together, and that kind of crescendos this beat out and like has a, I think, a satisfying ending to it. And then I just let the delay ring out here to finish the track. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. I will say before I end it, I do have a Pro L2, a limiter on my master channel as like a mastering chain. And that's just so that when I'm playing quieter elements, they're louder into the audio of the recording, so that, you know, quiet stuff doesn't get lost. And it's not like you have to like turn it up every time. It's just an easy way to do that. So yeah, I hope y'all learned something. If there's anything that I went over badly or too quickly or whatever, any questions that you have outside of that, just put them in the comments and I'll answer the ones. The channel's still super small right now, so I can take the time to answer every single fucking question in the comments. And yeah, I hope y'all have a good one, except if you're Ableton gang, then you could fuck right off. Yeah, so bye. That was good. That was a good time.